Something that I think is super cool with the dry ice, I can take yogurt like this and I can make it carbonated. So if I take some of this yogurt and put it into this bowl, the last bit out there. Okay, so with that in there, I'm gonna take some dry ice, break it off with a fork, and then I can throw it in. It's not a bad idea to wear gloves, especially when you're handling dry ice, but since I'm just grabbing it super quick, it's good. Okay, so with this dry ice, I'm just gonna stir this around into the yogurt. You can just see that steam is, I guess I could call it steam, is just blowing off everywhere. There's a lot of it. It's kind of weird to see your yogurt bubbling like that. So we're just gonna stir this around and break up that dry ice until it's all evaporated, because we don't want to be eating this and then chomp down on some dry ice. You don't want to almost burn your mouth. So just stir this around and break it up until it's all evaporated. One cool thing that's I think is cool, see if I take this dry ice out, nothing is sticking to it. That's just because there's a layer of that gas around it that's keeping the yogurt from sticking to it. So nothing is gonna stick to it. It just falls right off the yogurt. It's actually pretty fascinating. Alright, so I have all the dry ice dissolved in here. There's none left. And if there is just a little bit, it's just, you want to get it all out. But if you do find a piece in your mouth, you can just chew it quickly if it's a small piece. Just keep it moving. If you keep it in one spot, that's when it's going to burn you. So if you keep it moving, it's not going to do anything. But this is really some cool stuff. Now we have some carbonated yogurt. Sure is wild. There's some really cool stuff you can do with dry ice. One of my favorites is just taking a quarter like this, and what we'll do is just place it in the dry ice, just like that. You can hear it vibrating, and it's shaking. It really is cool. Because what's happening is the gas is coming up around it and escaping, and it's vibrating like that. It really is cool. Now what happens, now this quarter is super cold, and it's not really going to melt into the dry ice anymore, so I can take a new quarter. It does the same thing. Look at that. You can get a bunch of these going. It starts to sound really weird. Yeah, this is really just wild how these quarters are shaking like this. I'm just curious if we can use like a penny to see if it'll do the same thing. Yep. Here's a nickel. Maybe nickel doesn't work as well. But also, if you just take this and lay it on the face of the dry ice and push down, like with a, here, let's get a warmer, like a fork here, any piece of metal. It just totally screams. It's really, really interesting because that gas is just trying to escape. It makes these really weird sounds. It's like it's screaming. It really is just wild. All right, now let's go ahead and take this dry ice and drop it in. You can see it automatically just starts bubbling and stuff starts coming out of there. We can even close the lid and kind of let it start building up, but this is really thick. It really is wild. All right, now let's go ahead and lift the lid now. And that looks a little weird, you know, when you got all that in your toilet. A really cool trick you can do with dry ice that I think is just fascinating. First of all, we just need to take a jar full of water and then some dry ice here. I'm just gonna drop this in the water, and we know it's just gonna start bubbling like crazy. Seems to be working a little bit better. Okay, now this is the cool part. Let's wait for this to pop. You can see the bubbles filling up with dry ice. It's just filling up more and more and more. And the cool part's coming. Just wait for it. Now this just looks wild. Just wait a little longer. Wait for it. The dry ice is filling up that soap bubble. Wow, this is looking really crazy. Wait. And that is so cool to watch it hit the ground, mushroom out like that. It's a lot of fun to do this. There it goes. Wow. Coolest bubbles ever. Here we have a sterling silver spoon, and here's just a stainless spoon that's pretty normal. So I'm just curious what the different sounds sound like when you apply them to dry ice. This is a little block of dry ice here. See, if I lay this down, they make that sound. So I'm curious to see what the different sounds they are, or if there's even any difference. So let's put them on at the both time first. Ugh, that sounds a little, ugh. I don't necessarily like that sound. Now let's try just the silver one. Okay, and then we'll try the stainless one. I think they're pretty similar. I do think the silver has a higher pitch to it. Oh. When you get that in the right spot, it is really, really ear piercing. I'm just warming the spoons up. They work better when they're warm because they're more like melting that ice. Like, oof. Wow. Yeah, that's cool. So if I hold these on here just for a second, the silver one definitely frosts over much faster than the steel one, just because silver is a better conductor. That is just kind of a cool test, and it's just amazing how it makes these spoons vibrate. Really, it's just there's a layer of gas between the dry ice and the spoon itself, and that's what makes the weird sound.